Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and joining me today, you've missed him, I've missed him, he's back, it's Justin Housman!
How long has it been since I've done one of these headlines once?
Like 6 weeks?
Because we've done, what,
July
We've done a couple gears and beerses.
Gears and beers, yeah, you've been able to drop in on a couple times, but you've had
It's because nothing's happened in the outdoor world that's been worth talking about. We only talk about stuff when there's stuff to talk about. Am I right? I'm not right.
That's it. That's how we're going to that kind of schedule.
Not right. I've been traveling, doing some camping. Was in Colorado last week, doing some gear testing. You know, living the life.
You've had a summer.
I've had it. Yeah, I guess I don't want to say it like it's over, but it is different when you have kids in actual school. It does feel like summer's over.
Well, Justin, as you can tell, is back, and you lucky listeners now get 2 doses of headlines each week from the Rock Fight Mondays. You're going to get outdoor industry and business focused stories with myself and producer Dave. And on Saturdays, Justin will join me to talk about the community and the adventure side of the outdoor news cycle. And today we're going to be talking about Alex Honnold's reaction to last month's tragedy on Half Dome, this summer's concerning and continuing trend happening in Death Valley and the Grand Canyon, and some gear chatter, and also an interesting new way to get your ski pass in Vermont. Before we get to those, we got a few housekeeping items for you. We want you to follow and rate The Rock Fight wherever you're listening on whatever podcast app. There's a new podcast app I know all about. It's called Fountain. If you're listening on Fountain, thank you. I'm sure you can rate the show. Check that out. So yeah, follow along, leave us that 5-star rating. And Justin, where can our listeners, hear us? Where else can they hear us? Where can they follow along with all of our shows?
Well, it just occurred to me, if you want, I'll set up a 1-900 number, and you can just call me and I'll just talk. It doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't have to be sexy time or whatever. But if you really do love hearing us talk so much,
I definitely got in trouble with a few 900
numbers.
I
never had the courage.
Youth.
Never had the courage.
Yeah.
I mean, what? You can't hide it. What are you going to do?
No. You call from your buddy's dorm room is what you do.
Oh wow, yeah, wow. No, I think even back then I kind of had an inkling that I wasn't going to be talking to who I thought I was going to be talking to. If you know what I mean.
You knew what was going to be.
I kind of knew what was happening. Where else can you follow? You can. Well, first of all, if you love gear and you love beer, or just gear and not beer, or just beer and not gear, it sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. Go listen to and follow our other podcast, which is called Gear and Beer.
Gear and Beer.
It's called Gear and Beer. You can follow and rate Gear and Beer wherever you are listening to The Rock Fight as part of the Rock Fight Global Podcast empire. You can also email us at myrockfight@gmail.com. Speaking of global empires and stuff, I would like to talk about The Last Starfighter with you at some point.
Great movie.
And we have a newsletter, which is, now I'm thinking about it, should probably feature more of The Last Starfighter in it. You can head to rockfight.co and click on join the mailing list. And you too can be recruited to fight in the battle against Zardan?
Oh, man. Is it Zardon?
Something like Zardon. Something like that. And the evil Kodan Armada. Oh, my God. I just pulled that out of my ass. The Kodan Armada is the bad guy.
Zur.
And the Kodan Armada, right?
Rylan is who wishes one day to rule over Rylos as a tyrant.
There's something about a Kodan Armada in there.
Before we get into our headlines, we do need to mention our teammates at Darby Communications. If you run an outdoor, endurance, or active lifestyle brand, there's no better PR and digital marketing belay partner or drinking buddy than our pals at Darby. They can help your business reach new heights, and they might just keep you from falling straight on your ass. Look, if they can help us, they can help anyone. Reach out to Darby today, darbycommunications.com. Let's talk about some things that have been in the news while you've been out gallivanting around North America, Justin.
I wonder if I'm in any of these stories.
Did you write any of these stories? Is really the question.
Let's find out. I should probably read the outline. No, I didn't. I did read the outline, but I didn't write any of these.
So last month, tragedy struck at Half Dome in Yosemite National Park when a young woman slipped and fell to her death during a storm on the section of trail higher up on the peak where metal cables have been installed to assist hikers in their ascent and descent. I looked it up, it's about an average of 50,000 people hike Half Dome each year, and this was the 7th hiker since 2006 to die after slipping in wet conditions. And I want to talk about Outside's coverage of this, but before we get to that, I mean, did you see this? You're Yosemite, that whole area is kind of near and dear to you. Yep. Have you been to Half Dome?
I've never climbed Half Dome because I have a debilitating fear of heights. But I I guess like I'm never surprised when I hear about this kind of thing. I mean, it's a brutally sad story, you know, as a parent, you know, like I truthfully can't even fathom what it must have been like to watch your daughter fall off that that piece of granite. I mean, even now I'm just looking at palms are sweating. But yeah, I have no interest in climbing Half Dome. I have no interest. I've never really had a lot of interest in like being on the tallest thing. You know, like I don't really care that much about. Like Half Dome was beautiful. Like I want to look at it. I don't standing on top of it, you can't see it. But anyway, yeah. So
that strikes me as one of those like I would love to do that, but I would like it'd have to like be on a guaranteed day when I don't want to deal with anybody else. Where it's like you just get to go up, have the whole thing to yourself, have the whole like the cables, everything to yourself. Like, you know, not because I'm afraid, but just like that's not a place I want to be. It's like our conversations around Everest. I don't want to be hanging out like around with like 1,000.
No, I agree
people.
with that. I mean, it's the same reason I don't like to go camping in a busy campground. Like I don't really want to be on any trail that's like loaded with people or have to wait in line.
Yeah.
At that point, you feel like you're at an amusement park. But I also like. One of the things that's interesting about Half Dome, and I was thinking about this when I saw this on the outline, was that you know, I know a lot of people who've climbed Half Dome. None of them what I would describe as like particularly like outdoorsy. You know, like
right.
I'm sure that a lot of my friends who are like gung ho outdoors have climbed Half Dome, but like the people that I'm thinking of right now that have done it, you know, maybe 10 or 12 people that I know personally, like they camp sometimes, but it's not like their life revolves around like hiking and being outside like mine does. So it's interesting. Like I think it attracts, you know, it's like a bucket list sort of thing that's going to attract all kinds of people, but a lot of those people probably aren't prepared. I don't know. I've never understood, and I know we're going to get to this, and maybe this is kind of what you're asking, but I've never understood why the cables are there. Like it just seems odd to me. Like it's like that. I don't really understand how you climb that without them. It's just bare rock. I guess if you're a rock climber, you can, but I mean,
that's
like,
probably why, right?
You know, it's like, well, of course it's why, but like, it's like, why there? Like, of all the things, like, why are there not? It just seems odd, you know. It's like, to me, I mean, if you've never been to Yosemite, or at least Yosemite Valley, I mean, it's like Half Dome is the thing that you see, right? Like, it's not even. I was gonna say it's something like Notre Dame, but not really. It's more like the Eiffel Tower or whatever. And obviously, you climb the Eiffel Tower. I don't feel like people should be up there. Like it just feels like it's almost like an untouchable thing to me. It seems odd to me that there's cables there. I've never really understood why there are.
Yeah, it's almost like one of the peaks that you look at and you're like, it's like the Matterhorn and like Half Dome, and it's because they're so unique and odd in the way that they formed. I remember flying up to Oregon or something like that from down here in San Diego, and you kind of look out the window and just all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's Yosemite.
Isn't that cool?
Why? Well, you can see Half Dome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you can see it from the plane, right? And it's unique that way. I guess I do wonder if you went back in sort of, you know, sliding doors moment, if they would, whoever approved putting the cables in, would they do it over again now? It's kind of like, you know, that staircase that they just ripped down on that mountain in Hawaii, right? I mean, just one of these things like, oh yeah, we should have a thing here. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. But I mean, 50,000 people in a year now are using it. So clearly
that's so many.
They're not going to, that's a lot.
That's a huge amount.
Exactly what you said though about how, you know, who's actually going up there or prioritizing going up there to the point where it's like a bucket list item. There's an article went outside that covering this. A writer named Jamie Moy, I'm not sure what else she's written, but, you know, the question of the article was, are the cables worth it? And then they posed the question to Alex Honnold. And this is just like, I had to pick a fight with this. I'm like, guess what Alex Honnold said? Like, yeah, of course it should be there. Like, of course he's gonna back up that those cables should be there and that people should go and use it. I don't really know what you expected him to say. I don't really understand what you're trying to like get at it with it just feels exploitative to me, like to have an article like this. It's just clickbait. It's like, hey, let's try and find a way to get a famous climber on board with a tragedy on a really popular tourist destination. It's like, oh, this is clickbait heaven for outdoorsy topics. And it just kind of, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, it was a tragedy, but a lot of people go up there. And honestly, in the grand scheme of things, like 6 or 7 since 2006. By comparison, 34 people have died in the New Hampshire's presidential range in the same time frame. You know, it's just a weird thing to cover in that manner.
It's more visible. You know, it's probably like
totally.
You know, it's almost like a shark attack or something like that, where it's like there's something about it that kind of, it seems dangerous. It seems very visible. It seems like it's more interesting than someone getting lost or whatever or like freezing to death in the presidential range, I guess. As far as like the, you know, having Honnold weigh in on it, like in some ways it makes sense because I could have seen him easily say something like, "Oh, no way there should be cables early. That should be like a pure experience. You know, like if you're going to go up there, you should be able to like earn it. You know, like that's like, if this was the surf world, that's how the conversation would have gone. You know, like for the most part, like tow-in surfing, for example. I'm not in any way saying that like that cables on Half Dome are like tow-in surfing, but in some ways they kind of are. You know, when that first started, it was all the best surfers in the world that were doing it. Like it hadn't even occurred to people that weren't like big wave surfers to do it. And for a while, it was kind of like frowned upon, but then it became now it's like it's established this place as like only if you have to kind of a thing. But point is that for a long time it was looked down upon because they were like, no, like you have to earn it, you have to paddle into the wave. So I could have seen him saying something like that. And there is sort of I get why you like, he's the most famous climber in the world, so like his take is, it's going to be interesting, but at the same time, he's so far removed from that. Like,
well, that's what I mean.
You know, it's like, well, I don't know. It's like asking a Major League Baseball player about some like little league thing. You know, it's like, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, like you know, hey, Shohei Ohtani, like, what do you think about that Babe Ruth, you know, home run that was hit the other day? You know, it's just like I think if you're going to get someone to weigh in on this, like, how about someone who builds trails for a living, or the person, or the
ranger that
person,
puts it up? Because, you know, Ranger puts that up every year, you know. Or the superintendent of Yosemite, you know, like someone who actually has to deal with the ramifications.
System to go. Yeah. I just, and it's also, and this comes back to, we've talked about this, I think, a few other times, when even you think about just the inherent risk of some of the things that we do. Like, okay, 50,000 people, what did I say? How many often? A year? Yeah, 50,000 people a year since 2006, you know, so 18 years, 6 people have died. It's like, you know, you play that out, like, well, how many people die each winter in avalanches? It's a weird kind of thing.
Well, I mean, and no one's saying we should close the backcountry.
That's what I mean. And just to kind of like, if you wanted to write an article about it, there's a way to kind of approach it with like, you know, oh, here's the history of this trail. Here's why the cables are here. Here are other trails where like, oh, you wouldn't think about like this trail. Someone dies here every 5 years, whatever it is. If you really wanted to dig into this, it just seems very on the outside nose to say, hey, somebody died. Oh my God, let's get the greatest climber that's alive to weigh in on like this hiking trail that really he has no expertise on whatsoever. And then in the article, he talks about how, well, I hike on the outside of the cables.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I believe you. Of course you do, Alex Honnold, but like, don't tell people that.
Or occasionally just on the vertical face of Half Dome.
Right. I take the direct route.
Yeah.
Because I'm Alex Honnold.
Yeah. There's just one of the other things, I don't know.
By the way, I feel bad for Honnold. I'm not criticizing him for participating. I just think it's like, it was kind of a flawed exercise to begin with. So
there's something to me, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's not like, again, people die outdoors all the time. You know, that's just how it goes. But like, it is kind of, there's something kind of ominous about Half Dome anyway. And then knowing that like, when you're looking up at it, you're always, I've never been to where the cables are. So I know where they are, but I've never been to that part of the valley. And when you're looking up at it, you're always like, how is this even possible? Like, how in the world, or if you're looking at it from other sides, like how and why and blah, blah, blah. And it's just, it's kind of weird when you're in the valley and it's just like standing like sentinel. Well, that's a weird choice because there's also Sentinel Dome, but like standing kind of like sentinel over the valley. And you're like, God, people just die on that. Like, it's just a weird, but I guess you could say the same thing about like, the Matterhorn, right? Like, it's right above Zermatt. And people die up there. Like 3 people have died in the Matterhorn in the last like 2 weeks, by the way.
Saw that too.
I guess it's also like, but that's kind of part of the thing. Right? Like that's
it. I mean, when Fitz came on the very first time, like way back when the rock fight first started, I mean, he said, the one thing he said is like, hey, listen, the reason we do this is because there's some risk built into it. You know, like, yeah, like going for a mountain bike ride or a trail running, it's incredibly low likelihood that something really bad's going to happen to you. But that's part of the reason why we do this stuff.
Yeah, I get. I mean, it's interesting. I think we've probably talked about this on the podcast. I'm not motivated by risk. Like that. That's not my adventure sort of. I mean, I know tons of people are, but that's that's not my. Like, I don't have risk involved in my definition of what adventure is. For me, it's much more about seeing something I've never seen before and not knowing the outcome. Right. I guess that is a risk, but not like I might die.
There's still some built-in risk to all of it, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, think about when you got hurt on that mountain bike ride. Like, you weren't intending on falling off a cliff that day,
right?
You know, like you know, but you did.
But I did. I don't even. There's part of me that's like, why even publicize this sort of thing? You know, it's like,
well, that's what I mean.
Someone died.
Like, if you're gonna write this article,
I don't have. I also don't have that instinct. You know, like when I was a surfer, I was never like, ooh, a shark attack. Let's write about it. Or like, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's important if it's like a kid in your town gets run over by a car because it raises awareness of, and you write about it because it raises awareness of like traffic incidents and kids should be safer. So maybe it's that kind of a thing. But it's just like, I don't know. I don't like reading stories about that.
Well, like I said, I don't know the inner workings. I don't know, Jamie, it sounds like, I'm sure she was just assigned this story from outside. I think this just seems to me of like that intersection of perfect things for, outside to capitalize on and get clicks for without it really being well thought through of like what is this going to be about? I could be wrong about how that came together. But the follow-up story, the next story we want to talk about kind of is, to your point, the other side of like, does bring some interesting attention to some other deaths that are happening in the outdoors over the last couple of months. Because according to USA Today, earlier this month, 2 people died from heat exposure in Death Valley. And at the same time, 3 people died in a week at the Grand Canyon. In a week. Now, Grand Canyon, it wasn't from heat like it was at Death Valley, but it was from falls.
Whoa.
And they weren't confirmed in the USA Today article, but 2 of the falls were from individuals who looked like they were too close to a cliff edge or like hopped a fence to kind of get to a more exposed area. The other one was a base jumper, and the chute was deployed. But this is one. I mean, and then if you read about the folks in Death Valley, one guy like pulled up, went for a hike, got in his car, and then crashed his car like shortly after getting back into it because of the heat. Yeah.
Whoa.
So. I don't know. Is this just like a bad summer? Is this like too many newbies in the outdoors after COVID? We've talked about this, I think, probably maybe even the last time you were on before you took some time off of like, why are you going to Death Valley and the Grand Canyon in the summer anyway?
I don't get that. Unless you just want to see what that's like. I mean, I guess it could be kind of interesting. What does 130 degrees feel like? I'm going to find out.
God, I'm all right. I'd rather go climb up Half Dome.
Okay, so having said everything I just said about being kind of perplexed at the cable's existence, I should clarify, it's not because they're dangerous. I don't mind that. Like, danger in the backcountry is fine. Like, that's like we've just been saying. I mean, it's not, again, I'm not motivated by danger. I'm aware of it. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to hike 20 miles out in the middle of the backcountry by myself, I'm aware that something bad could happen. Like, that's fine. I don't have a problem with death in the backcountry. I mean, I was just talking to somebody yesterday about how anytime I go to, like, Montana, for whatever reason, I go to when I'm flying to the Bozeman airport, I usually go to the bookstore, and they always have a great selection of like death in the backcountry books there, and like it's fascinating to me,
crazy. And
like people die all the time, like 3 in a week at the Grand Canyon. That can't be that unusual. I'm sure that's happened before,
That's a good point.
And so it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I in some ways think that's kind of like, I like that we do things that can kill us. You know what I mean? Like that's part of being alive. That's part of being on this planet, right? Like if you just sit in your house all day and don't do anything, then like what the fuck is the point? But so like I don't know. I don't have an issue with it. Like I don't think, even if it is because there's more people out in the backcountry than there used to be, and maybe a lot of them are radically unprepared. Oh well, that happens. I mean, it's life and death. We're all going to die anyway. Like you can't avoid it. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's don't go hiking in Death Valley in the summertime with like a 2-liter bottle of Coke. Well, that's it. But like,
I think these are interesting stories to kind of put next to each other, right? Because I mean, again, the Half Dome thing incredibly tragic, but you have to get a permit to go, so you're going to be tempted to go, maybe even when you shouldn't. There's thunderstorms in the area. They got caught in a thunderstorm and she slipped. Like to your point, horrific. Can only imagine the father sitting there, all that stuff. Someone chose to go hiking in Death Valley when it was 100. One's closer to the Darwin Awards than the other is what I'm saying, right? I mean, it's like, who said, you know what? Yeah, man, today's the day. Going to Death Valley and going for a hike. And again, I'm not trying to make light of another tragedy, but it does kind of be sort of it's a nuanced question about like why people go and do things and how do you evaluate risk and what kind of risk is important to you as it pertains to the adventures you want to have. Because I'm with you, like in that kind of base statement of I'm more interested in the discovery of it and not just doing something for the sake of it being a risk. But I also am, there is some element of like, there's some risk involved here in everything that I do when I go outside. Yeah. So, I mean, it's from the small things like, I was out with hiking my dog on the little mountain by my house the other day, and here comes a skunk like walking towards us. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess part of the risk today was my dog might get sprayed with a skunk, and that would be inconvenient if that would ruin my day if that's what happened. So all the way to you could actually really get hurt doing this, right? So I don't know. I think it's a fascinating conversation.
I'm not saying that I'm in any way. First of all, I definitely don't mean this to sound like I'm a badass or that this makes me unique in my thinking about going outdoors and stuff. But I mean, I've spent the majority of my outdoor life as a surfer in places with like a lot of sharks, and or at least a reputation for having a lot of sharks, a lot of large sharks. I guess to a certain degree, like I've kind of, in the same way probably that people that do a lot of backcountry stuff in Alaska feel like I've kind of made my peace with the fact that there's sharks out here and that at any point I might get eaten or killed,
or just even bit.
Right. And so it's like, okay, I think like to me, I have a healthy understanding of death in the backcountry, it happens, but you don't expect it to. That's one of the things that's really interesting about a book. I think it's actually called Death in the Backcountry, but there's a lot of books like this. And one of the most fascinating things about it is, yeah, sometimes it's falling down the cables at Half Dome, but even that, like physically, isn't like that demanding of a thing. You're just kind of one foot in front of the other. You're holding on, and I think some people even clip in to the.
A lot of times,
segments.
yeah. Yep.
So like, it's not that like challenging unless if you slip, you're fucked. But like, it doesn't always happen there. It happens because you twisted an ankle and you're just too far from the trail to get back onto it, or you took the slightest wrong turn, or you're just a little bit too cold, or something like that. Like it's not always these big risky things. It's often just something you would never expect. And so I don't know. It's just part of going outside. It's just part of going outside.
But it is. This is how I think it's funny because, like, you're definitely on record with like, I'm not going backpacking in Montana where there are grizzly bears.
And that's what
right?
I mean. It's because I have a healthy awareness of this kind of thing happens, and I'm also not going to court like the. I mean, obviously, I go surfing in the Northern California, which is virtually the same thing as like going backpacking in Montana.
But statistics are still in your favor, right? I think it's kind of like I look at like statistics are in your favor. If I gave you the choices, at gunpoint, you had to do one of them. Like you got to go for a 3-day backpacking trip in Montana. Or you got to go for a day hike in Death Valley.
Yeah,
I don't mean to laugh. But like in the middle of summer.
I'm doing the bears. Yeah,
I'm going for the bears, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really unlikely that anything's going to happen to you with the bears, right? I mean, like you're going to get at least sick if you're going to go out 130 degrees.
I think there's probably people that really like that. They're just like, you know what? Like I want to see what this like heat is like. There's heat heads, There's people. If people are into everything.
Yeah, we're not. I'm not that far from Death Valley. There's definitely part of me is like, it would be cool to be up there on a day and just get out of the car for like 2 minutes and be like, holy shit, that is hot. Yeah. I'm getting back in my car now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sucks though. God, I don't know. I don't like laughing during any kind of discussion about this sort of thing. And I want to point out that it's mostly been you that's been laughing. That's
true.
Everyone out there.
That's true. I'm the asshole.
Yeah.
I just think it's fascinating to put myself in the shoes of when these things happen. I think, it's a.
It is interesting. I mean, I can't help but, especially with the Death Valley thing, I can't help but think about. I feel like this is all. I don't remember which one it is. One of Ed Abbey's books. He has this little bit about coming. I think he was looking for him when he was like a ranger. I think he was looking for this guy that was lost. It might have been that he randomly stumbled across a body, but he found some dead guy who was like leaning against probably like I don't know what kind of tree, some kind of tiny tree in the desert in Utah, and dead of thirst or heat, and he's just like, he talks about how like could be worse, right? Like look at this view. I mean, granted, the guy's probably terrified, but the way he describes how he's just like sitting against this tree, it almost looked like he was kind of peaceful. You're like, maybe I'd rather it be that than like a hospital bed, in a lot of ways.
See, I agree with that too. I think like I'd rather do that than the only thing of anything we've talked about where you couldn't talk me into it at this point is a lot of the backcountry like ski stuff, and like the avalanche thing is more terrifying to me than anything else that we've talked about today.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, think about people, they run Badwater, right? It's a 135-mile ultramarathon through Death Valley in the summertime, right? And like, I think most people survive that if they choose to run it, right? So it's kind of like, I'm sure, this may have just been an unfortunate situation with going on in Death Valley. Same thing on the Grand Canyon. Sounds like it was probably just unfortunate for the most part. Yeah, the grizzly bear thing, the sharks, all of those things you can kind of point to. You can get to, like, okay, here's how we're going to approach it so that you minimize the risk, and also the risk is probably pretty low. Going in the backcountry on like a high Avi day, like that freaks me the fuck out.
But all of these things way, 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 way fucking safer than just driving a car.
Right.
Like statistically, just so much safer. And you don't even
it's a good point.
think about
Nope.
it. Don't even think about it. You're going to get in your little...
You ever think about doing it with your pinky on it while you're like looking at something in your seat, like...
You're going to be in your Ford Maverick later today, like going 75 miles an hour on the freeway, like 8 feet behind a car right in front of you. Neither of you are paying attention.
No. It's true.
Not going to worry about that.
Well, anyway, our condolences, obviously, to anyone who has been affected by these tragedies this summer. But I do think these are important conversations to have when it comes to the outdoor lifestyle that we all lead. And to that outdoor lifestyle, let's move into some gear news, because per SGB, pack maker Deuter is partnering with Hydrapak to integrate hydration, reservoirs, and flax into a range of performance packs that will hit the outdoor marketplace in the spring of 2025. The 6 collections that will feature Hydrapak products are the AC Light, the Ascender, the Race, Rogla. Is that a German word? Short Tail Speedlight Pro, and Trake. Traick. I assume I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I know I spelled it right because I copied it right out of the press release.
Those are not German terms, by the way.
Isn't Deuter German? Deuter's German.
Could be, but I'm just telling you, those aren't German words.
Well, how do you feel about bladders in general? I've kind of a mixed opinions on bladders. I really value what they can offer, but for the most part, I would much prefer have a bottle for my hydration needs.
I never really use them, but I probably should, and I don't have a good reason why I don't. Like,
why should you? Like, what do you mean?
It's so much easier than having a bottle. Like, you just have it. It's just right there. Like,
on paper, it's vastly superior.
It's so much easier, and you can carry a lot more water, and you're carrying it in a place that makes sense. I don't have a great. I mean, unless your backpack is really small, you're taking it off every time you want to get a drink of water. You gotta stop. You take your water out. You take the lid off. You drink it. It's just a little tube. I have no idea. Plus, you get to pretend like you're in Dune, like drinking out of your still suit.
I don't know if that's worth it. Like, if you have a big pack on and like you feel the bladder next to your back or anything like that, that might not be.
I don't know if I've ever really experienced that. I mean, I've never especially for backpacking, it seems insanely dumb not to use a bladder, because then it's like now you got to take if it's a big backpack, now you got to take a 30-pound backpack off every time you want to drink of water. That's insane.
Well, don't you have your bottle set up so you can just pull it out of like your hip pocket or
whatever? Not always. You know, you know what's way easier than that? The tube.
Little tube.
The tube. Just that little tube. I was using one on a hike in Colorado last week. Was that last week, Colin? I think it was last week.
Just last week.
Like hiking around in Rocky Mountain National Park, and it was like, it was a press trip, and there was some, goodies, and one of them was a Camelback backpack, and like, and because I usually don't use them, my first thought was I'll just take the bladder out and like use it as a backpack.
Yeah.
I was like, no, dude, it's here. Like, this is, use it. And I did. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I mean, other than the fact that it tastes like plastic and they're virtually impossible to clean properly, at least easily. I should say easily. It's rarely hard. Like, I've written stories about here's the best way to do it. And it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Right.
You're much more likely to just leave your disgusting like bladder in your backpack indefinitely, and like
that little bacteria, it makes me stronger.
Yeah, maybe
I'll just drink
that.
Yeah.
But I wish I used them more. I mean, there's something inherently kind of goofy about it. I get that, and especially like I definitely don't on mountain bike rides. But why? I don't know. I really need to do it.
I much prefer bottles on a bike ride. I would rather put my bottles on my bike than have it on my back.
The one nice thing about that is that I'm usually so fucking thirsty, and like it's hard to get enough. Like the tube, it's almost like torture. Whereas a bottle, I can just guzzle it down.
Just guzzle, yeah, right.
But yeah, I think I mean, I don't know. I think I'm all for them, and I wish I used them more. I mean, it's a pretty brilliant idea.
What a bladder is and what it can do for you just makes a ton of sense. So it really has to be just a personal preference why you wouldn't. I do think even if you don't like bladders, though, I think there's value here. Like, it would definitely, for me, I would take another look at, like, if you're going to get a Hydrapak, like a branded bladder as part of, like, your purchase with a Deuter pack, like, I think, that's pretty cool. Like, especially if it's all relatively the same price-wise.
They usually don't come with their own bladder, like, so that is cool. That is cool. And I like Hydrapaks a lot.
Well, how do you feel about Deuter?
I've never gotten into Deuter. Ever.
I have one Deuter pack that I like a little day pack that I like a lot. It's pretty old.
I remember when I first got into outdoor stuff, I was like, well, I'm going to get some Deuter because it just sounded cool. And like anything European seemed like better to me.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I've never had any Deuter. When I think Deuter now, I think about like baby carrying packs, because I know they make some good ones and like a lot of people have them.
Well, last story, and I thought of you at the moment I read this, I thought you would really dig this, is according to theinertia.com, Vermont skiers now have a new way to score their season pass for the upcoming ski season. People cannot now head to Mad River Glen to help mow the lawn. So the Mow Some Grass Earn Your Pass initiative uses manual labor on the ski runs that are too steep for tractors. So volunteers can take a handheld scythe up onto these ski runs and trim the grass for 10 8-hour days. And then you'll get a season pass. And they'll pay you as well, apparently. I found that out too. I'm like, it's just like 10 days of hard labor and you get a ski pass? I don't know if that's worth it. But what do you think about it? You would do this probably without even getting the ski pass, just to like swing a scythe around.
I might. I just need to know, Are they using the phrase ass, grass, or cash at all in their marketing right now? Because if not,
it's mow some grass, earn your pass is the official name of the initiative.
But they're missing a fucking huge opportunity with that. You know that bumper sticker, right?
Which one? What is it?
Ass, grass, or cash? Nobody rides for free.
No, I don't know that.
Jesus Christ, man! It's like it came from two different worlds just because you're out in Pennsylvania. That was like a hugely popular bumper sticker in the 80s. Ass, grass, or cash. Nobody rides for free. Like if you're gonna ride in my car, I need one of these three things. I think it's awesome. That should be the case for everywhere. Like, remember how when you were a kid in like movies or cartoons or whatever, like people would be like, "Oh shit, I don't have any money to pay for my dinner I just ate," and they'd be like, "Well, you could wash dishes." Was that happening? Right. Was that a thing?
Yeah, was that a Hollywood manufactured thing?
It must have, because you're probably paying a dishwasher. What are they now? They have to go home. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But still, I love that idea. That's fantastic. Everything should be like that. I would totally do 1,000,000 times more things if you could didn't have to pay cash. You could just work for the.
You could just give the labor to work off
your
debt.
10 days, 10 8-hour days.
7 to 3.
So 80 hours for basically $1,000.
Yeah, $959 is the price of an adult full pass at Mad River Glen.
So that's like working full time for $500 a week.
Well, and it says on their website that you'll get some cash as well. So I'm assuming you're going to get some level of hourly rate. You actually get some money, because I felt like that's a lot of labor.
Yeah, that's a lot of labor for that. That's a lot. That's less than minimum wage if I'm doing the math correctly in my head.
Now, if you were what if you were just a ski bum? You're like, you move up from Virginia to Vermont to be a ski bum or something like that, right? And it's like, well, here you go. You could just get your ski pass and work for 10 days and get a free pass. I mean, it's probably worth it then.
I think so. So I'd rather do that than get a job for 10 days, or you know what I mean, and then or whatever, just to pay for it. At least you're done and you get in really good shape. You'd learn you'd learn how to handle a scythe.
Well, that was actually, it's actually in the marketing photos, a person holding a scythe.
Remember those dudes that we saw wheeling those mowers up on the mountain bike trail that we rode?
Oh, yeah.
Why can't they use
that's
that?
Got to work, right? Couldn't they use something like that?
Yeah, I would think.
But would you want to if you could use a motorized mower thing versus a scythe?
Well, scythe is going to be way, way lighter. It's going to be a lot quieter.
Get a workout in all day, too.
Definitely horror film level scary. I feel like that's the most dangerous implement on the planet to me. They look horrifying.
Yeah.
I feel like with the person that invented that, they're like, boy, I should cut this grass. And they invented that. And I bet they spent a few minutes going, I don't know if this is worth it. Is this? Maybe I shouldn't have done this. This is a box I maybe shouldn't have opened.
This was a bad decision.
Yeah.
It's literally if there was another level in Pulp Fiction when Bruce Willis is getting the weapon to go back in and save during the scene in the pawn shop to save Marcellus Wallace.
Yes.
He gets the samurai sword. If the scythe had been there, he would have chosen the scythe.
It is a wild thing. In terms of I don't know that there's something that's more. You want to say it's overkill, but it's kind of perfectly engineered for what it does.
Yeah.
But Christ, is it really necessary? It's just so gnarly. Like a hammer, for example. Perfect. Perfect size.
Well, and
it's
also
not
in this
scary.
case, what if you just wanted to bring your own electric, weed whacker?
Yeah, can I just bring that?
Whacker? Could you just can I just bring my own thing?
No, you got to be a fucking scythe.
Nope, got to be a scythe to earn your pass.
I think it's
your
great.
original point though, just more of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like just come and earn something that way. Do a little work, get something cool for it.
Love that.
I'm into it.
I love it.
All right, last thing today, we have our parting shot. So the parting shot is a new segment on the show where we each just kind of we throw a rock at something that we just want to throw a rock at. It doesn't have to be outdoorsy in nature, just something we're just going to get off our chest. It's the last thing we're going to talk about. So what is your parting shot today? What do you got?
Stop tinting the front windows of your car. Stop doing that. I don't care if you live on the sun.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Stop fucking doing it. I know, and I see so much confusion in forums about this kind of thing. Or whatever forums, maybe not, maybe on the internet, guess generally speaking, people, but it's too bright, or I don't want cops see me. It's not because the cops want to see what you're doing. It's so the pedestrians and bicyclists can see your eyes. Stop doing it. It's horrifying. Stop it.
Isn't it illegal?
Yes.
Is it legal?
No.
It's illegal, right?
It's illegal everywhere. And cops don't seem to care. It's just oh my God. Or even that there's my parting shot. Cops, bust people for that.
Yeah,
stop busting people for weed or whatever. I can't see, I don't really drive very much. And it gets hot here. So a lot of people have their front windows tinted. I can't even imagine what it must be like crossing the street in Phoenix where every car has that. And you're do they see me? I have no idea.
Boy, you're right. As a cyclist, when you're coming up and someone's going to look in the pullout, you're trying to make eye contact. Make sure. Did you see me? Do you see me?
So many times I'll be at an intersection and like I'm like I have no idea if this car sees me. I'm just going to sit here, and they sit there too. And you can and then like sometimes you can sort of vaguely see motion in the behind. And you're like, I think they might be wavy. I don't know. I can't see.
Yeah, can't tell because you tinted your windows.
Yes, just stop doing that, please.
All right, my parting shot is this weekend. The remake of The Crow finally opens up in theaters, starring Bill Skarsgård as Eric Draven. They've been trying to do this basically since the 1990, was it 95, whenever it came out, which was a classic movie. It holds up. It's amazing. They couldn't let it go.
Never even seen it.
You never saw the original Crow?
Never saw the original Crow.
It's good. You'll like it if you watch it today. Sure. Excellent movie. But since that original movie, these are the stars that have been attached to play the Crow over the last like 20 years, 30 years. Mark Wahlberg, Bradley Cooper, Luke Evans, Jack Houston, and Jason Momoa. And Bill Skarsgård is actually doing it.
Wild assortment.
Right? And Brandon Lee, if you go back and watch it, tragic, another tragedy. Wow, a lot of tragic stories this episode. But so he, dies during production. But it's an amazing film. It's still great. If you read the comic, it's a great companion to the comic. I hate that they're doing this. I think I'll hate it more if it ends up being good. I don't want it to be good. Because just like leave it alone. I'm pretty sure it won't be good. But anyway, that's my parting shot. Fuck you, The Crow. You shouldn't have made it. All right, man, we can wrap it up there. What you got going on? You going surfing? What are you doing? You getting outside?
You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a run of my Norda trail shoes that I really like.
You like those shoes?
Those shoes are badass. Yeah, they're really good.
Norda.
They're really, really good.
We should feature them on Gear and Beer.
We should. I put on the Hoka Mafates that we talked about before last night to go for a run because I just wanted to see. Come on.
Not even close.
No. I mean, they're comfortable, but they don't feel... I don't know that I'm ready to pay. I mean, they were given to me. It was a press trip. I'm not ready to pay $300 for a pair of running shoes, but like it's a wild difference. Like the Hokas.
How long will they last? Like that's really the question.
They had a pair at the office they said had 1,000 miles on them. They just looked dirty. But like, because you could resole them, and
you can.
Yeah.
Well, that's worth $300.
I think so too. I totally think they're worth it. I mean, Dyneema is like impossible to destroy. It's like what the aliens are made out of. Like it's so tough. So like it's gonna last forever. But yeah, like the Hokas feel like a slipper. They felt like a toy.
All right, so you're gonna go for trail and your Nordas.
My Nordas.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Well, the Rock Flight's a production of Rock Flight LLC. Our producer today was not David Carsat. He decided not to come today. So producer Dave, he's missing a lot lately. Yeah, that guy. We got to have a talk with producer Dave. But for Justin Housman, I'm Colin Truth. Thanks for listening. And he's here to take us out. It's Krista Makes. Gonna sing the Rock Fight fight song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters. Rock Fight.